Ms. Noble, this is Michaela Mitchell. I'm the hearing officer. I just wanted to make sure that you're ready.
I'm all set.
Thank you. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on the record at this point. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michaela Mitchell. This hearing before the Health Systems Planning Unit of the Office of Health Strategy, identified by docket number 20-32374. CON is being held on March 4, 2021, regarding an application filed by the applicants, Advanced Radiology Consultants, to acquire a CT scanner in Wilton, Connecticut. On March 14 of 2020, Governor Ned Lamont issued Executive Order 7B, which in relevant part suspended in-person open meeting requirements, and also which has been extended to April 20th of 2021, and is why we are holding this meeting virtually today, for this hearing rather than meeting. To ensure the continuity of operations, we wanted to do it in this manner to maintain the necessary social distance to avoid the spread of COVID-19. And that is why we were holding it virtually. We ask that all members of the public mute the device that they are using to access the hearing and silence any additional devices that are around them. This public hearing arises out of an application for a certificate of need pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 19A-639A, and will be conducted as a contested case in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 54 of the Connecticut General Statutes. My name, again, is Michaela Mitchell. Victoria Veltri, the Executive Director of the Office of Health Strategy, has designated me to serve as the hearing officer for this matter. Also on with me are my colleagues Brian Carney and Jessica Rival to assist me in gathering facts regarding this application. We also have Leslie Greer, our consumer information representative, to assist as well. Our priority is the integrity and the transparency of this process. We expect that decorum will be maintained by all present during the proceedings. The hearing is being recorded and will be transcribed by BCT Reporting LLC. All documents related to the hearing have been or will be submitted to the Office of Health Strategy are available for review through our Certificate of Need portal, which is online and accessible at our website. The applicant, Advanced Radiology Consultants, is a party to this proceeding. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Carney to read into the record those documents already appearing in HSP's, or the Health Systems Planning Unit's, table of record in this case.
Good morning. My name is Brian Carney of the Office of Health Strategy. At the time, I'd like to enter into the record it's A through M.
All right, and I'll just turn it over to the applicant's attorney to introduce herself and indicate whether or not there's any objection to those exhibits. I'm having difficulty hearing. I just want to make sure that's not on my end. I just wanted to there you go.
Can you hear me better now?
Perfect.
Oh, good work. Okay. So sorry, we're getting feedback about our number. I'm not sure if we're coming through you.
We can hear you. I can hear you well.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and adjust the phone, but the corrections are with respect to Exhibit F, which is the hearing notice dated February 4th. in that hearing notice, it indicates that the hearing is being held pursuant to 19A 639A F2. I believe it should be 639AE, since Norwalk Hospital did request a hearing. So this is being held at the request of a member of the public. And the other correction is in Exhibit H, which is the request for pre-filed testimony dated February 11th. That inadvertently references Radiology Associates of Hartford, where it should be Advanced Radiology. So other than that, we have no objections to the record. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing those to our attention. I do note that I think you told us about Exhibit H during the pre-hearing conference, so we'll make necessary revisions before finalizing the table of record. All right. So at this time, the applicants are going to present their direct testimony. We only ask that we make sure that the applicants adopt their pre-filed testimony prior to making their statements. I'm going to reserve the right to allow public officials and members of the public to testify outside of the order of the agenda. Generally, applicants go first with their testimony. We ask questions and then we hear from the public. So if there's anybody who's a legislative public official that wants to testify, please make sure that you let us know. Probably the best way to do that is if you can if there's anybody on at this current moment, because we didn't do pre-registration for this hearing, if there's any legislative officials, can you let us know that want to give comment? You can unmute yourself. All right. So hearing none so far, what we'll do is I'm just going to go ahead and allow the applicants to provide their testimony. I'm going to advise the applicants that we may ask questions related to your application that you may feel that you've already addressed either in the application itself or in the pre-filed testimony. And we just do this for the purpose of ensuring that we are clear on all of the information received, and we also do it for transparency for the public. All participants, to the extent possible, should enable the use of video cameras when testifying or commenting during the proceedings. Anyone who's not testifying or commenting should mute their electronic devices, including any telephones, television, or other devices not being used to access the hearing. We're going to monitor the participants during the hearing. To the extent possible, if anybody has any questions about the procedure, just utilize the raise hand function and I will acknowledge you, or one of our staff will let me know if I don't see you immediately. For Attorney Fusco, if there's anything that you need to let me know, you need to utilize the raise hand function because we don't have any interveners or other parties. So just let me know if you need me. Participants can mute their devices and disable their cameras when we go off the record. Just want to give everybody a warning that we're going to continue recording even when we take breaks. So if there's something caught on a hot mic, it's going to be recorded. Make sure that you mute yourself. Public comment taken during the hearing will again go in the order that we establish. I'm going to call everybody by name when it's his or her turn to speak. And at any time that we go off the record and we come back, I'll make sure that I give everybody a 1-minute warning to let you know that we're about to go back on formally so that you can get in your places and everybody can get ready to participate and or listen. So at this time, I'm going to ask the individuals who are going to testify on behalf of the applicant to raise their right hand so that I can swear them in. All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
All right. And just for the record, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourselves.
Sure. Clark Yoder, Chief Executive Officer of Advanced Radiology.
All right.
Dr. Gerard Muro, CMIO and neuroradiologist with Advanced Radiology.
Okay.
Carol Freya, Director of Finance for Advanced Radiology.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, we'll go ahead and allow the applicants to present their direct testimony.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hearing Officer Mitchell and members of the OHS, thank you for taking the time this morning to hear our application. My name is Clark Yoder, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Advanced Radiology Consultants. I hereby adopt my pre-filed testimony. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of our CON application for the acquisition of a 64-slice GE Revolution EVO CT scanner for the practice's Wilton office. As our prior submissions and testimony here today will demonstrate, there is a clear public need for the proposed CT scanner, which will help alleviate unmanageable CT capacity constraints at Advanced Radiology and our other office locations. It will improve access for the Wilton service area residents and help the practice meet projected future demand for CT services based upon a growing and aging population, new emerging applications that can be used in CAT scan, including elective cardiac and lung screening exams. By way of background, Advanced Radiology is one of the largest and oldest private imaging practices in the state of Connecticut. We have been serving Southern Connecticut for over 110 years, with office locations extending from Stamford up to Orange, Connecticut. We provide a full range complement of imaging services, including CT scanning. Our physicians are all subspecially trained, and in addition, for reading scans at our offices, we also provide professional services at St. Vincent's Medical Center and Bridgeport Hospital in Bridgeport, Connecticut. As you will hear from Dr. Muir today, several key factors that set Advanced Radiology apart from our competitors is our commitment to employing subspecialty radiologists, to continually evaluating and upgrading our medical equipment, and to remain at the forefront of electronic medical records and imaging sharing capabilities. We have been and continue to be focused on delivering cost-effective, high-quality, excellent patient care at all of our facilities. Our goal is to be the definition of healthcare value. Advanced Radiology also serves all patients regardless of their ability to pay or payer sources, and treats Medicaid and uninsured patients in our offices every day. Advanced Radiology has been serving the needs of the Wilton Norwalk community for many years, and with our finally opening up an office in Wilton in 2017, with the goal of addressing a strategic gap in coverage and capacity constraints at nearby practice locations. We offer MRI, ultrasound, mammography, bone densitometry, and general X-ray at our 30 Danbury Road office in Wilton. Most of the patients served in our Wilton office live in Wilton, Norwalk, New Canaan, Westport, Weston, Reading, Ridgefield, and then we even see patients from all of the parts of Fairfield County and also New York State. Our Wilton office is easily accessible from Route 7 and other major highways with ample free parking. We're also very close to public transportation and the bus line. The accessibility of an office is critical, particularly for the older population and patients who may not be able to travel so far because of their illness or avail themselves early in the morning or late in the evening. Our decision to add CT scanning services at our Wilton office was driven both by need and access considerations. The practice performed 2,566 CT scans in the Wilton service area residents in 2019. That is an increase of 31% since 2017. These patients were primarily served by Advanced Radiology CT scanners in Fairfield and Stamford. These are the closest units geographically to the Wilton service area, although nearly 300 patients from the Wilton service area traveled as far south or as far as Stratford, Trumbull, and Shelton for their CT scans as well. Advanced Radiology's Fairfield CT scanner performed 4,959 scans in 2019, an increase of 11% since 2017. This represents 134% of the total capacity of a CT scanner per the state health plan guidelines, and 158% of the optimal capacity per SHP. The practice's Stanford CT scanner performed 2,724 scans in 2019, an increase of 18% since 2017. This represents 74% of the total capacity and 87% of optimal capacity. Together, these units in Fairfield and Stanford were operating at 104% of total capacity in 2019 and 94% capacity in 2020, even due to COVID service interruptions. With the exception that CT scan volume will rebound and continue to grow as we emerge from the pandemic, we continue to expect significant gains. Advanced Radiology, we have expanded our CT hours and staffing in Fairfield and Stanford as much as we practically can, considering the need for physician coverage is necessary for contrast examinations, and is still challenged to meet the growth of demand for CT scanning services for its patients. In addition to the foregoing, we have seen significant growth in CAT scans of the lung and heart for screening purposes among our patients from the Wilton service area. In 2019, we performed low-dose lung screening CTs on 33 individuals from the Wilton service area. In 2020, the practice performed low-dose cardiac scans on 85 individuals from the Wilton service area. That is a 158% increase. I do have one correction in my statement. Our low-dose lung was 85 individuals. I misspoke there. We performed cardiac screening on 11 patients from the Wilton service area in 2019. In 2020, the cardiac screening of the Wilton service area residents increased by more than 20-fold to 239 cases. One important aspect of advanced radiology, and that is an important trait of ours, is community outreach. We are collaborating with local cardiologists as well as community fire department to offer low-dose CT cardiac and lung screening exams for their employees and for their patients. We expect the demand for these screening exams to grow over the next several years as we continue to collaborate with communities and the physicians. The proposed CT scanner Wilton will have both low-dose lung screening and cardiac screening capabilities, which will greatly enhance access for the residents within and around the Wilton service area. This proposal will allow advanced radiology to decant our volume and alleviate pressure on our existing CT scanners. In the case of the Fairfield scanner in particular, are operating beyond capacity with continued growth expected. Patients need timely access to scans and screening to ensure proper diagnosis and make sure that they have the best treatment outcomes. Next, I would like to touch on the clear public need for our application. The clear public need for the proposed CT scanner in Wilton is evidenced by the state healthcare facilities and service guidelines and considering other providers in the marketplace. It will also help ensure diversity of providers, as all other CT scanners located in the Wilton service area are operated by Nuvance Health and are, to the best of our knowledge, hospital-based units. Under SHP, clear public need can be determined by analyzing the percent utilization of capacity in a particular service or the percent utilization of current capacity within the imaging provider's own practice. The need for the Wilton CT scanner is shown to be valid under both methodologies. If we look at all freestanding CT scanners in the Wilton service area, they are at 83% capacity. Expanding this analysis to the Wilton service area and contiguous towns, CT scanners are operating at 89% capacity, okay? And looking at the capacity of advanced radiology CT scanners in the Wilton service area and contiguous towns, they are operating at 104% capacity. Additional CON capacity is clearly needed, and the situation has become more critical as the population continues to grow, age, and we see increasing demand for elective specialty screenings. The GE analysis that's included with our CON application shows that over 65 of the population over 65 in the mid to lower Fairfield County is expected to increase by 17% in the next 5 years. 50% of CTs involve patients in the 65 and older cohort. This will result in a 25% increase in the outpatient CT volume, or an additional 13,000 scans. Importantly, our application does not have an adverse effect on existing providers. We do not anticipate the acquisition of the CT scanner for its Wilton office will adversely impact existing providers in and around the Wilton service area. The Wilton CT scanner will be primarily used by individuals who already utilize our scanners in Fairfield and Stamford. Our projections assume that a percentage of these patients will shift to the Wilton office and that the CT volume will continue to grow year over year due to the growth in aging population and increased utilization of CT for diagnostic and screening purposes. Our referring physicians want advanced radiology to establish CT services in Wilton, so their patients from the Wilton service area will have timely access to high-quality imaging services within the community and from the provider of their choosing. Now, patients are forced to travel outside the service area if they choose to access advanced radiology CT services. In addition, significant capacity constraints mean that patients often need to wait for an appointment or schedule appointments that are less optimal times, such as early in the morning or late in the evening. Experience has shown us that patients want to use advanced radiology for their CT scanning services, and that referring providers will continue to refer patients to our practice. Patients have the right to obtain imaging services for their provider of their choosing. If we do not increase our capacity, the practice will reach the point where our units cannot accommodate all the requests we receive for scans. Overall, advanced radiology has a proud history of treating all patients, including Medicaid patients, the uninsured, and participation in a joint venture with Hartford Healthcare will ensure continued access to imaging services for all patients, regardless of their ability to pay or payer sources. Hartford Healthcare is a nonprofit health system, like advanced radiology, that does not discriminate against patients and cares for all individuals. If the Wilton CT scanner is approved and becomes part of our Hartford Healthcare joint venture, the system's charity care policy, which applies to all of our joint venture offices, including Wilton, will apply to the Wilton CT services. A commitment to care for Medicaid recipients becomes increasingly important as the Medicaid population in the Wilton service area, and particularly the city of Norwalk, continues to grow. According to a recent DSS report, 29,284 Norwalk residents received medical assistance, including Medicaid, in 2020. That number is up from 18,669 in 2012, which is a 57% increase. Our offices are and will continue to operate as freestanding, non-hospital-based imaging providers. Freestanding imaging services tend to be reimbursed at lower rates and in turn are less costly for patients than similar services provided with hospital-owned operated equipment. We have submitted evidence to this effect in our CON and hearing submissions, as well as evidence that shows payers steer more patients towards freestanding providers for major imaging services. Several of the national insurance carriers have adopted policies that prefer and direct patients to freestanding outpatient imaging centers. In conclusion, advanced radiology has demonstrated a need for additional CT capacity within the practice, in the Wilton service area, and surrounding towns, and in accordance with SHP guidelines that inform OHS's decision-making on CON for major imaging equipment. Our existing CT scanners in Fairfield and Stamford collectively far exceed optimal utilization, and the strategic expansion of this modality to fill a gap in our CT coverage is prudent. We have put forth a proposal to acquire a state-of-the-art CT scanner that will be utilized by our subspecialty trained radiologists to provide the highest quality imaging services to area residents. The practice's non-hospital-based CT scanner will be a cost-effective alternative to hospital-based scanners in the area, which typically receive higher rates and charge facility fees. We do not. For these reasons, I urge you to approve the CON application and allow us to add much-needed CT capacity to our practice. I would now like to turn over the presentation to Dr. Gerard Muro, who's our neuroradiologist and Chief Medical Information Officer. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have once the presentation is concluded. I thank you sincerely for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Mitchell and members of the OHS staff. My name is Dr. Gerard Muro, and I am a practicing neuroradiologist and Chief Medical Information Officer with Advanced Radiology Consultants. I hereby adopt my pre-filed testimony. For Advanced Radiology, I wear two major hats. One hat as a fellowship-trained, board-certified neuroradiologist, where I'm on the front lines of clinical care. I direct the practice's radiology section, which utilizes the latest imaging technologies such as 3T MRI and optimized multi-detector CT to provide the highest level of care in the field of brain, spine, and head and neck imaging. As a radiologist, it is important to have all imaging modalities at our disposal and greatly depend on access to patients' medical information, including prior imaging. My second hat is a subspecialization in medical informatics. Here I am involved with the incorporation and internal development of cutting-edge health information technology solutions that improve quality of care, lower costs, promote sharing of healthcare information, and empower patients. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of our CON application for the acquisition of a 64-slice GE Revolution EVO CT scanner for the practice's Wilton office. My remarks today will focus on the need for additional accessible CT scan capacity in the Wilton service area, including growing demand for elective CT lung and cardiac screening. I will also provide some background on the CT technology we intend to acquire, the exceptional qualification of the subspecialized radiologists who read these scans for our practice, and our plan for electronic medical record integration and image sharing as we move forward with the Hartford Healthcare joint venture. The proposed Wilton CT scanner will improve access to CT services for residents of the Wilton service area and surrounding towns, as demand for these services continues to grow. The practice has experienced significant growth in CT volume in recent years, particularly in our Fairfield office. There are several factors that have contributed to this growth. First, the population of Fairfield County is both growing and aging. The GE market analysis that Mr. Yoder referenced projects a modest population growth for mid to lower Fairfield County over the next 5 years, but significant growth in the 65-plus age cohort of approximately 17%, which already compromises 17% of the population. As the population ages, they tend to require advanced imaging due to a variety of medical conditions. CT scans are an essential modality. For many conditions, CT is the preferred diagnostic test as they are quicker, and less costly than MRI scans and provide information not obtainable with MRI. In many cases, MRI and CT complement each other at deriving the most accurate assessment of a medical condition. Having shared access between these modalities can be critical for timely quality care. As Mr. Yoder testified, a 25% increase in outpatient CT volume in the service area of 13,000 scans is expected due to this growth and aging population. Moreover, the practice has seen an increase in CT lung and cardiac screening in recent years, a trend which we expect to continue. Evidence shows that low-dose CT screening can significantly reduce lung cancer mortality. Similarly, using CT for coronary artery calcium scoring assists cardiologists with assessing an asymptomatic patient's risk for a major cardiovascular event. From a population health standpoint, we can see the importance of having access to CT, especially for the most vulnerable patient populations. As we evaluated where to add CT capacity to meet increasing demand within our practice, the accessibility of the Wilton office was a critical factor in our decision-making. Older patients often have issues that interfere with their ability to drive and to navigate cities and more complicated care settings like hospital campuses. Our Wilton office is conveniently located on a main thoroughfare in close proximity to the Merritt Parkway, I-95, Metro North, and other public transportation, and provides ample parking and easy access to the proposed CT scanning suite. Our practice has historically offered centralized scheduling, convenient CT scanning hours, and minimal disruptions to procedures once they are scheduled. Quality and care coordination. Acquisition of the proposed 64-slice GE Revolution EVO CT scanner and the incorporation of this technology into our practice of subspecialty trained radiologists with access to state-of-the-art electronic medical records and image sharing capabilities will greatly enhance quality and care coordination for our patients. The proposed CT scanner will be accredited by the American College of Radiology, has significant quality enhancements over other scanners, including exceptional image clarity and resolution with low-dose technology, increased efficiency to streamline CT workflow and patient comfort. The Revolution EVO is designed to provide high imaging performance across all anatomical domains. It includes, notably, ACER-V technology, which gives healthcare providers the ability to reduce radiation dose, improve low contrast detectability, lower image noise, improve spatial resolution, and reduce low signal artifacts. In practice, it will provide superior ability to detect small lung nodules and calcium deposits in coronary arteries in early stages of formation. If approved, the GE EVO scanner will be the newest and most advanced CT scanner in the Wilton service area. In addition to having the most advanced CT technology, Advanced Radiology brings the knowledge and experience of its subspecialty trained radiologists to the proposed Wilton CT service. As Mr. Yoder mentioned, subspecialized radiologists are unique in that they have advanced training specific to certain organ types, areas of the body, and diseases, which makes them uniquely qualified to diagnose complicated conditions that may go undetected by someone with less training. Advanced Radiology physicians hold certifications from the American Board of Radiology, and fellowship subspecialties include neuroradiology, pediatrics, vascular and interventional radiology, body imaging, women's imaging, ultrasound, nuclear medicine, and oncology. This extensive specialization and training required of all advanced radiology radiologists for the benefit of our patients makes us a preferred provider in the communities we serve. In addition, Advanced Radiology's image sharing capabilities have always set us apart from other providers, and we anticipate further enhancements in health IT resulting from our joint venture with HHC. Our offices will be converting to the Epic electronic medical record system in late 2021. This will result in our records being accessible through both the HHC network and Yale New Haven Health Network, which also uses the Epic's Care Everywhere platform. This will further facilitate care coordination throughout the communities we serve. The quality and safety of all imaging services, including CT, will be enhanced by the availability of both historic and future images through Image Connect, which is HHC's clinical image integration platform. With this platform, providers are able to access a patient's images and reports anywhere at any time. This type of immediate access to patient images assists with the decision-making on patient transfers and can be used in connection with surgeries, cardiology, and cancer care to ensure that the correct decisions are being made for the patient in timeliest fashion. This access will also help to avoid potential treatment delays and unnecessary radiation exposure associated with repeat scans, which often occurs when a subsequent provider cannot access images from a previous study. In addition, the joint venture will continue to use Advanced Radiology's existing sophisticated image sharing network, allowing any referring physician access to images regardless of where the scan was performed or where the physician resides. This enhances the timely communication of exam results and minimizes unnecessary repeat imaging. This network also allows the highest level of subspecialty interpretation. In addition, patients are empowered with the direct access of their images and results through the patient portal. So before I conclude, I would like to tie this all together and demonstrate the value of our proposal with this story. This is a fictional story, but truly represents what happens every day throughout advanced radiology. It begins with Mrs. Jones, an elderly woman living alone. She has multiple chronic ailments, which significantly limits her ability to get around and often relies on Uber and taxis. She comes to the Wilton office for an MRI of her brain because of headaches. She says she's had a prior MRI, but she doesn't recall where or when exactly. However, through our system, we were able to realize that she had an MRI at St. Vincent's Hospital 5 years ago, and I have immediate access to that MRI for comparison. As a neuroradiologist, I'm reading her MRI, and I see something that's wrong, and I believe it could be an aneurysm. I have her prior exam. I could see that it's new, and it's very concerning. And she needs a CAT scan, a high-resolution CAT scan of her blood vessels, called a CTA. I call her referring physician, who knows me well and trusts my abilities as a neuroradiologist, and she can quickly order that important examination through our shared EMR systems. The patient, through Advanced Radiology, then quickly coordinates with the referring physician and the patient this urgent CT scan. ADRA has access to the required but existing lab work through the integrated EMR system. The patient comes back that afternoon for the CT scan. I'm at another office, however, able to maintain a continuum of care by instructing the technologist on how to perform that CT scan for this particular reason. The GE scanner is ideal for high-resolution imaging of the blood vessels, which he requires. Through our shared network, I am able to monitor and interpret the study immediately. My suspicions are correct: a large, life-threatening brain aneurysm. Mrs. Jones is immediately referred to a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon, through the HHC network, has instant access to her images and the reports through the shared imaging network. The neurosurgeon knows me and calls me directly on my cell to review the details of the findings. The patient was in the OR the next day and ultimately made a full recovery. Mrs. Jones required routine outpatient follow-up CT scans, which were conveniently performed at the Wilton office. These are as easily compared with studies performed in the hospital through the shared network. This was a timely, high-quality, coordinated effort with maximized patient experience and outcome. Mrs. Jones was very grateful to all of those involved. Now, if there were no CT scan in Wilton, there may have been delays in trying to get Mrs. Jones to another office. it's very likely that she would go to a CT scanner in another network where exchange of information would be delayed and deficient and care coordination suboptimal. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank you again for consideration of our request for permission to acquire a CT scanner for our Wilton office. As it stands, Advanced Radiology functions as a coordinated care network blanketing the Fairfield County region. Our venture with HHC adds multiple layers to this blanket of coordinated care and access and the care continuum and population health. Having a CT scanner in Wilton will assure that there are no holes in these blankets. It will greatly enhance quality and access to care for Wilton service area residents as the population grows and ages and as demand increases for CT scans, including elective lung and cardiac screens. We bring an abundant depth of training and expertise to the practice of imaging in this service area. In addition, the joint venture with HHC will further enhance quality and care coordination, ensure access to services for all individuals, and maintain our imaging equipment as a lower-cost alternative to hospital-based imaging services. For these reasons, we urge you to approve our CON request. I am available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Muro.
And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fusco. I think what's going to happen is we're going to go off the record for about 10 minutes because I think that your witnesses may have answered some of the questions that we have. So we're going to look at our questions and then we'll come back on the record. Before I do that, I'm just going to ask people who are listening, if there's anybody that wanted to give public comment, can you utilize the raised hand function at this time? Okay, I don't see anybody. All right, so we are going to break for about 10 minutes. We're going to come back on the record at 10:55. Just make sure everybody stays muted or your camera's off because we're going to continue recording. We're going to go back on the record in about a minute. While we're getting ready, if there's anybody that's just joined us that wants to give public comment, I'm going to ask that you utilize the raised hand function so that we can acknowledge you. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go back on the record at this time. Attorney Fusco, your client did answer some of our questions. We still have a few, so I'm going to go ahead and defer to my colleague, Jessica Rival, who is going to ask the remaining questions that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Could you describe the methodology that was used to derive the utilization within the primary service area?
Are you talking about for all of the units operating within the Wilton service area in contiguous towns?
Yes.
So I mean, I can probably answer that, and I think we had footnoted it somewhere in the CON. So we used the OHS, the most recent state health plan inventory, which I believe the most recent published was 2018. The 2020 Table 9 isn't out yet. So we used that to determine how many units there were within the service area. Then we did expand that as well to contiguous towns just to do both analyses. We looked at their utilization reported for each of those units for 2008, and we put that over the state health plan sort of maximum capacity of 3,700 scans per outpatient scanner, freestanding.
Okay. Thank you. Pages 1 and 2 of the responses to the hearing issues note that freestanding scanners in the Wilton primary service area are currently utilizing 83% of capacity, which is short of the 85% of capacity that's outlined in OHS's healthcare facilities, excuse me, and services plan. Why were the hospital CT scanners omitted from the methodology?
Again, I can answer that if that's okay. I mean, we used hospital-based outstanding freestanding scanners. Okay, so the other 3 CT scanners in the service area are hospital-based outstanding outpatient scanners. We didn't use the hospital inpatient scanners because we didn't think that was an apt comparison. Those aren't typically the scanners used by the patient populations that utilize the freestanding scanners that Advanced Radiology is proposing. But we did include all of the hospital-based scanners that sit in, quote unquote, freestanding settings.
Okay, this is Brian. We generally look at capacity overall, so we would typically include both those categories. So if you could, I'd like you to submit a late file, including, I believe there's 2 hospital-based CTs at Norwalk Hospital. You could include that in the calculation. The capacity is a little bit different for hospital-based. It's 12,000 scans
12,000,
per.
right?
Yeah. So it would be revising table A on page 9 of the pre-filed. I believe it's Mr. Yost.
Okay, page 15 of the application identifies the primary service area based on 70% of patient volume in the Wilton office. Could you explain the rationale for choosing 70% versus 75, and how the inclusion of the other area towns accounting for the additional 5% would affect the utilization rates?
Sure, hang on a second. Okay.
Yeah, so on OHS Table 2 of the filing, we looked at 70% because those were typically the towns that we saw referrals from to the Wilton office. They were typical and contiguous to the Wilton location. And so it just came out to be 70%.
And to answer your question, we didn't, I don't have, I mean, we can get you the data on what the next 5% would have been, what other town or towns it would have included. But these were kind of the typical Wilton office towns based upon the other services they're providing and the towns that sort of sit contiguous to Wilton. And like Mr. Yoder said, it just happened to total 70 versus the typical 75.
Thank you. Let me just think about the additional 5%. Right now, I think we're more, we're thinking about the hospital-based CT scanners more, but I'm going to confer with Brian, who has a better handle on the calculation than I do. So I'll just let Jess finish her questions, and then we'll circle back on the additional 5% for the service area.
Okay, thank you.
On page 2 of the application, there's a reference to OHS docket number 19-32340-CON for the Meriden Imaging Center in establishing service area utilization and capacity. Please elaborate on how the Meriden Imaging Center decision relates to this application.
What you give me another page, is the page 2. Page 2 is the title page of the application. Are you talking about the CON application main form?
You know, let me please take a look real quick.
I believe that's the pre-filed testimony, I believe, Jess.
Yes, it is. The second page of the pre-file.
Just a second.
Did you say the second page of Mr. Yoder's pre-file? I'm not seeing the reference.
Is this in reference to the Meriden decision? Yes. It's page 8. There's a footnote on page 8 of the pre-file.
Oh, page 8. Okay, page 8.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I was looking at the second page.
Yeah, my bad.
Oh, I can answer that question. So I had just included that reference because as we were discussing the methodology and how to actually do the comparison to determine percent utilization of current capacity, the state health plan talks about looking at data published by OHS, which to the best of our knowledge hasn't been published. So the way that applicants have historically looked at it is to look at those tables that are produced in the inventory, look at the utilization of the providers in the area, and sort of put that over, you know, either 3,700 or 12,000, depending upon the type of scanner. So I was just referencing another application in which the methodology had been, you know, the percent utilization of capacity had been calculated in that manner and accepted by OHS as an appropriate methodology. That's the reference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can you identify the contiguous towns to the PSA referred to in the pre-filed testimony on page 9 and throughout the application?
If you look at, again, I can answer it, and I apologize. But again, in terms of contiguous towns, if you look at the table, for example, table B in I think this is Mr. Yoder's pre-file on page 9, you'll see that the contiguous towns, specifically where there's equipment, would be Fairfield, would be Darien, would be Stamford, and then to the north would be Danbury.
Great, thank you.
And we do note, and I can correct this when we submit with the hospital scanners, that in preparing for the hearing and looking at table B and looking at the latest inventory, I realized there is another Danbury hospital-based unit. I believe it's called like the Danbury Medical Arts scanner that was not included, that is somewhere in like the 4,900 range for scans, which I can include back in as another freestanding unit when I redo the chart.
And that's all the questions that I have at this time. Brian, did you have any follow-ups?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right, just want to thank you both, Jess and Brian, for assisting with those questions. I did want to indicate that I don't think that we're going to ask for the additional 5% for the PSA. I think we're going to focus on the late file for the hospital-based CT scanners, an update for that. Let me just look at the participant list and ask again if there's anybody that wants to provide public comment. If you do, please utilize the raised hand function. I don't see anybody. Brian, can you just double check me and make sure I'm being honest?
Of course. I know you're honest. I do not see any raised hands at this time.
Okay. All right, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna leave the record open for the production of the late files. We customarily, not for the production of the late files, for the production of any additional written comments, we've been leaving them open for a week. Attorney Fusco, I don't know how much time you need for the production of the actual late files. So is a week?
That's plenty.
That's fine.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So we're going to leave the record open for a week for anyone who wants to submit written comment to us, and also for the production of the late files. I just want to announce on the record that we can receive comments from the public by email at concomment@ct.gov, or by regular mail at P.O. Box 340308, 450 Capitol Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, and the zip is 06134-0308. So we'll leave the record open for late files and public comment until 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 11 of 2021. I just want to ask you, Attorney Fusco, is there anything that you wanted to let us know or bring out for the purpose of the record before we adjourn for today? Closing statement?
Sorry, hang on, I'm getting feedback on myself. Okay, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. We can hear you.
Perfect. So I just wanted to thank you again for your time and for seeing the CON application through what is now coming up on a year-long process due to COVID and sort of other delays in getting this hearing scheduled. And, you know, we really do truly appreciate the work that goes into, you know, preparing for and presiding over these hearings. And we understand that you guys have a significant workload at this point in time. So, again, thanks so much. And I did just want to take a few minutes to kind of go through sort of the relevant decision criteria and guidelines. I know we're going to give you some additional information, but, you know, I think it's important to focus on the fact that, I mean, we have demonstrated a clear public need for the CT scanner in Wilton, right? So the state health plan guidelines allow you to look at it two ways. They allow you to look at it within your own practice, and they allow you to look at the service area more globally. And, you know, I can't speak to those numbers until we revise the late file, but just in looking at our own practice, we don't have a scanner within that 7 service area town, but we have them in contiguous towns. OHS has historically looked at, you know, contiguous towns when determining impact on existing providers and things that make it logical to do so, particularly since there are thousands of individuals from the Wilton service area that need to travel to those contiguous towns now for those scans. So if you're doing the analysis within the advanced radiology practice because of referral patterns and patient choice and patient preference, you can see that those 2 scanners in contiguous towns are operating at, you know, 104% combined capacity. And there's every reason to believe that those numbers are going to continue to grow as the population grows, the over 65 population, as it continues to age, as, you know, things like elective lung and cardiac screening become sort of more popular and more commonplace. So I think the practice has reached a critical capacity point. They, as I think Mr. Yoder said, are going to get to a point where even with expanded hours, they're not able to accommodate all of the scans that they have. You know, therefore, patients are going to have to choose to go elsewhere, and it raises a lot of the issues with respect to continuity of care and such that care coordination that we've discussed. So I think that, you know, that right there shows that there is a clear public need for the scanner. And I think, you know, looking at all of the other decision criteria, it's obviously going to improve access. I mean, thoughtful planning went into this. Advanced Radiology looked at where it serves patients and where those strategic gaps in coverage exist, and this is kind of a glaring one, right? They don't have a scanner in that service area. They don't have a scanner serving that, you know, that section of Fairfield County from which they necessarily draw a lot of patients based upon their reputation with referring providers and individuals here. And they will also, you know, putting it there is going to help with ensuring access for Medicaid patients and the uninsured. As you heard Mr. Yoder testify, this report just came out showing sort of the growth in the Medicaid population sort of in every municipality in the state. And it's kind of, you know, it's shocking to see the growth that has happened within the city of Norwalk over the course of the last 8 years. You know, you're talking about a 57% increase in the Medicaid population. And I will say, having handled CONs for advanced radiology for many, many years, they have always been a practice that has accepted and served a considerable amount of Medicaid patients. They take on insured patients. They work with them on payment arrangements if they can't pay for the services. It's just a commitment that they have always had and will continue to have. And as we mentioned, sort of the interplay of the joint venture with Hartford Healthcare being a nonprofit health system and how they handle those things will ensure access for those patients as well. We talk on all of these about the cost effectiveness of freestanding imaging services. You know, we do believe that the other 3 units in the area are hospital-based units that typically charge, you know, are reimbursed at higher rates and most certainly charge facility fees, which we do not charge, making services provided by advanced radiology more cost-effective to patients. And then for all of the reasons that Dr. Nero said, and I think your anecdote was wonderful about sort of quality of care and care coordination and the ability to get patients into just this top-notch provider with subspecialty trained radiologists and access to, you know, integrated electronic medical records and image sharing capabilities that really make it easy in a situation like Dr. Nero described, where, you know, there's an urgent need to get a patient diagnosed and treated. That's definitely a benefit and will be a benefit to all patients in the service area. And then finally, I just wanted to sort of provide our perspective on how, we think approval of this CON request is consistent with the way that OHS and your predecessor, OCA, have been handling imaging equipment acquisitions over the course of the last, let's say, 5 years. So, I looked back, and there have been numerous CON requests filed by hospitals and health systems, by private physician practices, by joint ventures, and more recently by specialty physician practices that are acquiring these units, to treat their own patients. And if you look at sort of the history, OHS has approved pretty much all of these applications. I think all of the ones that I could find, and the ones that are still pending are sort of moving towards a conclusion without any type of public hearing, right? So, but for an intervener requesting a public hearing in this matter, we might have resolved this one 8 months ago, but here we are with an 8-month delay in the disposition of our CON and kind of getting a much needed service to the healthcare community. But if you look at those CONs that have been approved, OHS is citing factors like public need, addressing strategic gaps in coverage, patient choice, cost to consumers, quality of care and care coordination, all of the things that are factors that we've discussed here today that support approval of the Wilton CT scanner. And I think, importantly, even though some of those applications that have been approved might have had an adverse impact on existing providers, and we can tell you for certain, with some of the specialty ones, they have had an adverse impact on on radiology providers like Advanced Radiology, but there's been a weighing of considerations by the agency in a sense that sort of need access, quality, care coordination, cost effectiveness are persuasive, and they tend to outweigh a minimal impact on existing providers. And so, I think the agency is allowing this type of development and resulting competition that I'll call a free market approach to imaging growth, regardless of whether there's projected or actual impact on existing providers. So here, while I think the need for the CT scanner is clear and the benefits to the public are evident and the impact on existing providers is going to be minimal, if any, we would just ask that OHS sort of give the same consideration to this application that you have to imaging applications historically, and take a similar approach in approving the request. And thank you again for your time. We appreciate all you've done here for us today and with this application.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Attorney Fusco, and your witnesses. Is there anybody, this is the last call, anybody that wants to make public comment before we close? All right. I still don't see anyone. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the hearing for today. Thank you again for your time and for the preparation of your pre-filed testimony and your testimony today. I also want to thank the staff of OHS for helping out. We're trying to catch up on a lot of these hearings. And so I just want to recognize you guys because I know that you're doing a lot of extra work that has just kind of been the norm since we've left the office, so thank you guys. And I will leave the record open for a week for anybody that wants to submit written comment, and then also for a week for anyone, for the production of the late files. So we're all set. Thank you, everybody. Hearing adjourned.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good day. Take care.
All right.